Good day, VR nerds. Oh, that was mean. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
How are you all doing? It's Cammy and I'm back with another VR video. So in this video, I am going to be focusing solely on PCVR tips rather than regular virtual reality, like on, well, I say regular, rather than standalone VR. I'm focusing on PCVR specifically. So yeah, and in this video, I've got 5 different tips that will help you with your PCVR experience. Honestly, some of them will save you so much money. Some of them will just give you a better overall experience overall. But all of them are going to help you out big time. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. Quick change of shirt before we go any further. So the first tip I wanted to go into in this video is about your PC tower. So basically, with a regular PC tower, it is always wise to allocate around 40 to 50% of your budget towards your central processing unit, which is your CPU, and your graphical processing unit, which is your GPU. So when it comes to VR, I would recommend maybe put a little bit more money aside for your PC tower, only because VR takes a lot more processing power from both of those, as it is essentially projecting 2 different images onto your lenses rather than one image which is going onto your PC display here, like with regular games. My tip is to put a little bit more money aside when it comes to building your PC for VR. With my PC, I spent around £500 altogether when it came to, well, I spent a lot more than £500, but my CPU and my GPU now are worth about £500, whereas the rest of my PC is probably worth about £400. And that is probably a good baseline to be around. So when it comes to having a PC for PCVR, make sure you prioritize those 2 parts, as those will give you the most mileage for your money. Also, bonus little tip here is overclock those bad boys. Overclocking will give you about 10 to 15% more performance, which is my assumption, but it could be more, could be less. Do be careful when overclocking though, just because that can lead to malfunctions of your devices or your PC parts if it's done wrong. So I would highly recommend, if you are going to overclock it, follow a guide, so at least you know what you're doing somewhat. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into tip 2. Anyway, so the second tip I have for this video is to use the Steam VR client rather than an Oculus client wherever you can, because the Steam VR client is a heck of a lot better than the Oculus client. Now that is just my opinion, but it's also backed up with a bit of fact as well. For example, the Steam VR client allows you to adjust the resolution that is being displayed to your headset on the fly, whereas the Oculus VR plugin doesn't really do much of anything, I don't think. So yeah, I would highly recommend just using the Steam VR client rather than the Oculus client, because it will save you a bit of headache when you're playing your VR games. Now, a little bonus here as well is that Steam VR 2.0 has just come out in the past month, and you can actually enable this by going over to your Steam VR properties tab and going over to betas, clicking on the Steam VR beta, and you'll have Steam VR 2.0 ready to go. And that is just a heck of a lot better than the Oculus client. Now, it will be said you will be using both of these if you're using a Quest headset with your PC, because you need the Oculus client open to use VR on your PC, and you can still use the Steam VR client. I'd recommend using both of them if that's the case. However, prioritize the Steam VR client because that will give you the most mileage. Okay, so now going into tip number 3. Now this is quite a very common tip that you get with regular PC VR things, or just regular PC tips or anything like that, but like, utilize the discounts you're given. For example, on Steam, there are plenty of discounts on many different games that you can use to your advantage. Well, while I was looking at different prices for this video, the Rise of the Tomb Raider was actually on discount from £25 to £4.99, which that is literally 80% off. Steam is the way to go for discounts. However, also Oculus or Meta, whichever you want to call them, tend to give you an email giving you free credit. The last time I got it, it was about £6 free credit, and that is enough to get a free VR game. So if you do have an Oculus headset, maybe check your credit because yeah, you might actually be entitled to a free game, or at the very least 30% off. So yep, tip number 3, look for discounts, go on Steam, go on Oculus, see what you can get. Sorry, tea break. Lovely. Okay, so going into tip number 4. Now tip number 4 it's quite a very simple one, but it's actually helped me out a lot when playing VR games that are like really intensive. So for example, when I play Resident Evil 2, my graphics cards, like, it's good, but it might not be capable enough to play RE2 VR at like the highest of settings. But so basically, you'll have a screen that will show off what you're doing in the game on your monitor as well. Yeah, you want to go and minimize that, because that is taking up processing power that doesn't need to be taken up. And every time I've minimized it, my game has run smooth, like smoother than a cup of tea on a winter day. Lovely. So yeah, basically, tip number 4, very short one. Minimize the windows that you don't need on your PC because they are taking up processing power. So finally, tip number 5 is to use mods to your advantage. Now I don't just mean mods as in the ones that give your blade and sorcery experience a bit of pizzazz or anything like that. I mean mods that will turn flat screen games into VR games. This day and age, there are so many different mods that turn regular flat games into VR games, such as the Resident Evil series, where you can play Resident Evil 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 in VR. So yeah, there are hundreds of games that have been modded so that they can be played in VR, and not only is it a better experience than actually playing it on a flat screen, they are like done surprisingly well. Some of them actually play better than regular VR games. So for example, Resident Evil 2. I know I keep going on about Resident Evil 2, but that is exactly how good of a game it is. It is absolutely amazing in VR. And that mod works better than a lot of games that you can actually play on like standalone or things like that. It is one of the most highly detailed VR games I've ever played. So yeah, tip number 5, in summary, use mods to your advantage, play some flat screen games in VR, and you'll have a heck of an experience. That is all I have for this video, really. I do just want to thank you again for all of the continued support that you have given me over the past week or two, especially because, oh my god, you have absolutely smashed it. And yeah, thank you so much. Now, if you do enjoy the content that I make, then again, please be sure to leave a like, just so I know you do actually like it. The best way that I can repay you is to make content that you actually want to see. So comment down below if you have a suggestion for me to cover, because this is how this video came along. I had no intention of making a PCVR tips video, but I seen in the comments someone wanted it. Here you are. This is the best I could do, by the way. This is like, it was very hard looking for PCVR tips. But yeah, thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you next time. Peace. Such a weird outro.